Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Escher, and this time I played 100 games of the Legends of Runeterra using the new Malphite Taliyah Landmarks deck. These two champions are widely regarded as the weakest and most disappointing of the Shroom expansion, but since Malphite was one of my favorite champions in League of Legends, I didn't want to give up so easily. My goal here was to really show how Malphite and Taliyah performed in average ranked games. I started with a deck by Silverfuse as a base, but made some of my own changes along the way. I chose to remove Soothsayer, as most of the time it didn't feel like it added any value. I added in Quicksand to counter tricky keywords like Quick Attack or Elusive. I added Zenith Blade to give either champion the overwhelm they so desperately want. And I added Stone Weaving to vary the pool of landmarks you can choose from. The Scargrounds or Grand Plaza at the right time can give you a great advantage. I'd classify this deck as somewhere between a combo and a control deck. Playing landmarks is not only crucial in leveling both champions, but it can also open up some easy ways to mess with your opponent or grow your own board. Chip is of course the star of the deck. Just look at him. But besides him, this deck relies on some key cards to survive and thrive. One being Saltspire, which is a frequent target for Taliyah to copy, and once it cools down, gives you a large unit on board. Another is Star Shaping, which can save key units or your Nexus, and possibly give you a win condition for the late game. And finally, Desert Naturalist, which is great for clearing away Emperor's Dais or Frozen Thralls. Board overcrowding isn't as much of a concern as the community thought early on with landmarks. But the real downside to this deck is just not drawing what you need in the early game. It's very often that I queued into an aggro deck, but only had landmarks in hand, or had plenty of units to set off combos, but hadn't seen any of those crucial landmarks yet. The countdown on so many of the landmarks also means that this deck is slow, leaving it very vulnerable to decks that can build quickly in the early game, like Turbo, Aggro, Burn, and Elusive. I started in Gold 4 on the North American ranked ladder, hoping to see a cross-section of what the average Legends of Runeterra player was bringing on the ladder. Let's take a look at the top 5 decks I faced. Number 1. Surprising almost nobody, Azir Irelia was the most common deck, and I only saw it 16 times, which is less than my last video. I won only once with this deck. I don't think I have to say much, except it's a terrible matchup for all of the reasons you already know. Number 2. Thresh Nasus is another repeat from my last video and from last season. I saw it 5 times and never won against it. It's just got too much aggro in the early game and grows larger and faster than we do. The fearsome units early on, especially Merciless Hunter, make it very difficult to counter. Number 3. Spider Burn seems to be coming back into popularity, appearing 4 times and going 50-50 with my deck. It really is a toss-up for how each deck draws. If you're able to lay down units early on and minimize their damage, chances are you can survive and outgrow them. Just watch for the fast burn spells. Malphite stun combo is an easy finisher. Number 4. Ezreal Draven shows up again, but this time only 3 times. I was able to win 2 out of those 3 games. This matchup is all about the counter spells, since there isn't any normal removal. Quicksand is great against either champion, and you can outgrow their board if you're able to set up good combos early on. Number 5. Misfortune Irelia. This deck showed up 3 times, and I was able to beat it twice. I didn't see many people playing Jagged Taskmaster, so without the buffs, it's much easier to counter than Azir Irelia. It also helps if you can use Stone Weaving to pull Scargrounds, making your units tough against their small attackers. These 5 decks make up 31% of my matches. Given the current aggro-favored meta and the popularity of Azir Irelia, I was surprised I saw that deck less this time around. That could be due to some players already achieving higher ranks than me, but taking a look at the variety of decks I encountered, I think there's a lot more variety than most people want to admit. This set of games was a lot harder than the last. Losing never feels good, but I was determined to get the data on where this deck stood right now. The highest rank I achieved was only Gold 3, but I plummeted back to the bottom of Gold a few times. My LP chart has more peaks and valleys than Malphite's back. My overall win rate was a disappointing 38%. This is the deck I ended up with. The code can be found in the description, and you can find all of the decks I use for my 100 game series on my Mobalytics profile. That link is also in the description. While I really wanted this deck to be something good, I think it's just not right for the current meta or the state of landmarks in the game. Hopefully we will see more synergy in future sets. In the meantime, let me know what you thought in the comments, and if there are any specific decks that you want me to play. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.